Do you think the odds will be in our favor for another post-apocalyptic teen series to be greenlit? Hope not. Is Katniss Everdeen a hero? She certainly isn't the stereotypical Hollywood hero found in most movies. Katniss really fits more in the reluctant hero archetype found in stories, but even then it's not a perfect fit. Every single heroic act that Katniss performs in the movies, she's doing it to protect someone she cares about deeply. Yes, these acts are heroic, but the actual focus, I think, of the books is about how Katniss is able to overcome the horrors and struggles that she has to endure. The first time I read the third book, I wasn't that impressed, and I was really kind of unsatisfied after I finished it. And that's because I really wanted Katniss to become the true kind of stereotypical hero. I wanted her to rally the troops and grow into her role as the hero and stand up and fight for injustice. I kind of thought the story was headed, and it just never got there. And if you sit back and think about it, what would the typical response of a teenage boy or girl be in the situation that she was put into? And I think the typical normal response is in fact how Katniss reacts to the situation. Katniss is really a broken individual by the start of the third book because of all the things that she's had to go through. Katniss's story is heroic because she's able to keep living after all of the horrors she's had to survive through. Katniss's story probably mirrors our military heroes in service of our country today and in the past. In protection of our country, in service of wars, they've had to perform and view acts that just aren't in human nature naturally, and they have to keep living after these acts occur. Once I viewed the stories with this perspective, I went back and read the books and greatly enjoyed all of them. Now, does the fourth movie, Mockingjay Part 2, capture the same story to the same effect as in the books? It really tries to varying degrees of success. The movie picks up right at the end of the events of Part 1, with Katniss recovering from the attack from Peeta. And for the first act, the movie really doesn't know what story it wants to tell. The first part of this movie feels a little forced and bloated. I really thought that the third book deserved to be broken up into two separate movies, but after watching the first part of this movie, I can't really say they justified the need to split the third book into two different movies. It really seemed that they just threw scenes together until Katniss arrives at the Capitol. And even once Katniss arrives at the Capitol, we have to suffer through a few scenes of very clunky and unneeded exposition. It's not until Katniss sets out into the Capitol to face all the battle pods that we heard about in the exposition scenes that the movie really picks up, and the scenes within the Capitol and her facing the pods are the highlight of the movie. The action in this part of the movie is great. It's tense and very exciting. While there is one jump scare that's predictable and you can see coming a mile away, the rest of the sequences in this part of the movie are great, and the action is top-notch. Katniss again showed how effective she can be with a bow and arrow, and Jennifer Lawrence proved that she can be an action star. Lawrence was great in the role and did a good job of displaying how damaged Katniss has become over the course of the entire movie series. The rest of the cast turn in good performances. Donald Sutherland is very creepy and ominous as President Snow. Julianne Moore does an okay job as President Coin, but I thought her performance was a tad unbelievable as the cold, detached leader from District 13. And leading into the end of the movie, some of the big turns weren't handled all that well. I thought how they were shot and explained in the framework of the movie just didn't flow into the film very well. They just didn't have the proper weight or impact on the course of the film that they really should have. Everything felt very sudden and abrupt, and I thought these scenes should have been expanded on visually to really drive home some of the more emotional impact. However, the overall ending was handled very well and brought closure to the series. It was very touching and heartfelt and kind of really pulled on your heartstrings. While I felt the first part of the movie was a bit sluggish and the emotional turns in the later part of the movie weren't handled all that well, the movie overall was a fitting end to the series. They really tried to capture the essence of Katniss' story and how she was able to handle and cope with all the different situations and tragedies that she was forced through. And while this movie is probably my least favorite of all the movies in the series, it's still definitely worth seeing. If you're a fan of the series, you probably have already seen it. If you haven't seen it yet, it's still worth checking out. However, if you're not a mega fan of the series and you've just watched all the other ones, I would probably hold off and rent this one instead of going to the movies and seeing it. And if you've never seen any of the Hunger Games movies, I would say they're worth checking out. Alright, end of the video time. So if you liked my review, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to hear me babble on about movies some more. Comment and let me know what you thought of Mockingjay Part 2. Where did this movie stack up in comparison to the other movies? Do you consider Katniss' story a heroic one? Let me know.